When the world above began to fall apart, a group of scientists and engineers gathered in a secret chamber deep beneath the surface. The leader, a gray-haired man named Dr. Oren, stood before a glowing console and said, "If the surface cannot survive, humanity will live below." The others nodded silently. Together they built Haven, a city under the ground. Once completed, Dr. Oren placed a small metal box on the table. "Inside is our message to the future," he said. "It must open in 200 years, no sooner." His assistant, trembling, asked, 200 years? Isn't that too long?" Oren looked at him sadly. "Let's hope it's not," he replied. "No one knows what the world will become." He sealed the box and handed it to the first mayor of Haven, who swore to guard it with his life. For generations, the box passed from one mayor to another, each one keeping it safe. But when the seventh mayor fell ill and died unexpectedly, the secret of the box was lost. It ended up in an old closet in the mayor's quarters, forgotten by everyone. 2 centuries later, the timer inside clicked softly, and the lid lifted with a faint hiss. No one noticed. Above, the city lights of Haven flickered uncertainly, powered by an ancient generator that hummed like a tired heart. The people of Haven didn't know of a world above them. They believed the dark rock walls around them were the edge of the universe. Life went on, simple, mechanical, and dimly lit. But the city was dying, and no one knew it yet. A boy named Caro hurried through the narrow metal corridors of Haven. His father, Laren, called after him, "Slow down, you'll tear your boots again." Caro turned, grinning. "I can't. Today's assignment day." Laren, an inventor with grease-stained hands, smiled proudly. "Ah, so my boy's becoming a man. I hope you get something useful." Caro frowned. "I just don't want a boring job. I want to help fix things. The city's falling apart." Suddenly the lights blinked off. The whole city fell into darkness. Both froze, counting seconds. 1, 2, 3. Then the lights flickered back. Caro sighed. "That's the 3rd blackout this week. If the generator fails completely, we're doomed." Laren chuckled. "You worry too much." Caro's voice hardened. "No, father. You don't worry enough." Later, Caro joined the crowd in Haven's Grand Hall. It was assignment day, when every 16-year-old would draw a slip from the mayor's bag and learn their lifelong job. The current mayor, Cole, stood on a high podium, smiling too widely. "Citizens of Haven," he boomed, "our city stands strong as ever. Today, our young ones step forward to serve her future." The children clapped nervously. Behind them, the generator rumbled weakly. Caro's stomach twisted. He glanced at his friend Naya, a quick, bright-eyed girl who was always late. She slipped in quietly beside him, whispering, "Did I miss anything?" Caro smirked. "Only your own future." They both laughed softly as the ceremony began. When Caro's turn came, he reached into the black bag, feeling dozens of tiny cards. His heart raced. He pulled one out and read aloud, "Messenger." His smile faded. Mayor Cole clapped lazily. "A noble duty, young man, running words through our shining city." Naya's turn came next. Her card read, "Pipeworks laborer." She groaned, "I hate the smell of the tunnels." Cole laughed again, unbothered. When the ceremony ended, Caro approached Naya. "Trade with me," he said urgently. She blinked. "Trade? Why?" "Because the pipeworks are where the generator lives," he replied. "That's where the real problems are." Naya grinned. "You're serious, aren't you?" "Deadly," Caro said. "And you've always wanted to be a messenger." She nodded and held out her hand. "Deal." That evening, Naya ran home in excitement. "Granny!" she called, bursting into the dim apartment she shared with her grandmother and little sister Pippa. "Guess what? I'm a messenger now." Granny blinked from her chair. "A messenger? Oh, child, that's wonderful." Pippa clapped her small hands. "Naya runs fast." Naya laughed and twirled her red messenger cape. But when she looked at Granny's tired eyes, her smile softened. "You okay, Granny?" The old woman frowned. "I've been looking for something. Something very important. It belonged to your grandfather." Naya tilted her head. "What is it?" Granny hesitated, then whispered, I can't remember." Meanwhile, Caro began his first day in the pipeworks. His supervisor, Old Sol, handed him a dented helmet. "Write your name on it," the old man muttered. Caro frowned. "Why?" "Because the last kid who wore that drowned. Without his name, no one'd have known." Caro swallowed hard. "That's comforting." Sol chuckled sleepily and handed him a wrench. "You'll get used to it." As they worked, Caro noticed rust everywhere, pipes patched with scraps and glue. "Don't we ever replace these?" he asked. "Haven't had new ones since my second decade," Sol said. "We just patch and pray." When Sol dozed off, Caro wandered deeper into the tunnels, flashlight trembling. He found a locked door, marked with a strange circular symbol. His heartbeat quickened. "What are you hiding?" he whispered. Up in the city, Naya darted through streets delivering messages. Her boss, a kind man named Harlow, gave her a red satchel and said, "Remember, no gossiping, no delays, no lost notes." She winked. "I'll be faster than the generator's blink." Harlow chuckled. "Let's hope the generator keeps blinking." Her first delivery took her to Clara, a botanist who tended the greenhouse's rare plants. Clara smiled when she saw her. "Naya May Fleet, your mother would have been proud." "You knew her?" Naya asked, surprised. "Of course," Clara said softly. Just then they heard shouting, guards dragging in a frightened man from the forbidden dark tunnels. "I saw something," the man cried. "Something alive." The guards struck him silent. As they dragged him away, a small metal object fell from his coat. Naya quietly picked it up. That night, Caro examined a broken pipe. "Sol, we can't keep patching these forever," he said. Sol shrugged. "You think the mayor'll send us new pipes? Be grateful the lights still shine." Caro muttered, "Barely." After Sol nodded off again, Caro found the same hidden corridor he'd discovered before. This time he forced the lock. Inside was a storage room stacked with canned goods. Fruit, meat, even sweets, long thought extinct. Before he could look further, a shadow appeared. It was Looper, a merchant known for his slick smile. "Lost boy," Caro stammered. "Just exploring." Looper's grin tightened. "Curiosity breaks bones, son." Caro backed away quickly, heart pounding. Suddenly, the generator went out again, plunging everything into blackness. Somewhere above, Naya gasped in fear as the city drowned in silence. The lights finally flickered back to life. Naya stood trembling beside a wall, clutching the strange metal piece she'd found earlier. Later, when she met Caro, she showed it to him. "I think it's from that man the guards took," she said. Caro turned it in his palm. "Looks like part of a beetle. But it's too big." He smiled faintly. "Can I keep it?" Naya shrugged. "If you want to." Caro pocketed it carefully. He didn't know why, but something about it felt important, like a clue. Caro and Naya spent the next day whispering like conspirators. Caro unfolded a scrap of old paper he had tucked away from the storage room and traced faint letters. "These letters match the script on that metal box your granny spoke of," he said. Naya's eyes widened. Grandma's always muttered about the builder's instructions. She said they'd guide anyone who found them. Caro chewed his lip. If the builders left instructions, maybe there's a way out. Naya shook her head. "Leaving is illegal. People vanish for trying." Caro's voice went soft. "But if the generator fails and the mayor hoards food, how long can we live on hope?" Naya glanced at Pippa playing with a broken toy. "We have to know the truth." They agreed to meet after dusk by the greenhouse and quietly share everything they could find. That evening, they slipped into Clara's greenhouse where the air smelled of damp earth and green life. Clara closed the door behind them and said, "You two look like thieves and saints." Naya laughed nervously. "We found something, Mrs. Clara." A box, a chip, and words in old script. Clara's fingers trembled as she took the torn paper. "The builders used this font," she whispered. "They taught us to preserve seeds, maps, tools, anything that might one day lead people back up." Caro leaned forward. "Do you think the mayor knows?" Clara's jaw tightened. "I wouldn't be surprised. People in power hide when things go wrong." Naya's hands clenched. "We have to show someone who'll help." Clara hesitated, then said, "Show me the chip. I'll examine it." Her voice held hope like a fragile leaf in a storm. While they spoke, Mayor Cole paced his marble office and counted his cans. He muttered to Barton, his assistant, "They'll sing and forget the blackouts." Barton nodded. "But the city grows hungry, sir." Cole's eyes darted to the portraits lining the wall, each former mayor clutching that little metal box. He sighed. "Those builders trusted the wrong people." Barton asked, "What will we do if the generator dies for good?" Cole's laugh came sharp. "Then we make choices. Save the important, leave the rest." Barton's face pinched. "And if the rest cries out?" "They will sing," Cole said. "We'll give them hope and nothing more." Outside, the city hummed in uneasy rhythm. Cole believed that order came from control. He did not see that order, like lights, could fail. Caro returned to the pipeworks to search for the strange circular symbol he'd seen on the locked door. Sul looked up from his nap and grunted, "You're wasting your breath, boy." Caro brushed grease from his hands and persisted, "There's a doorway behind the map. Maybe the builders left something there." Sul's eyes softened for a moment. "The old maps sometimes hide more than directions. Don't wake what you can't quiet." Caro ignored the warning. He pried at the loose locker and discovered a shallow cavity. Inside lay a small coded key and a faded schematic. His hands shook as he realized the schematic matched the torn paper he'd seen with Naya. "If we can find the control room behind the lockers, we might reach the generator room." Sul's voice faded into sleep, but his words were clear. "If you go, take care. The world above is not a story." Back at her apartment, Naya tucked Pippa into bed and listened to a recording that came from their old answering machine. Voices from the days before Haven had closed its doors. Pippa slept with fingers curled around the edge of the blanket. Naya played the message again. A voice named Barrow promising to return and help. Her heart tightened. She had thought Barrow a stranger. Later she showed Caro the chipped metal she'd found, the beetle piece, and he compared it with the chip he had taken from Cole earlier, the one he'd filched during the mayor's embarrassing nap. "They're part of the same mechanism," Caro said carefully. "Maybe a key." Naya swallowed. "If that key opens something the builders left, then we should find it." Caro nodded. "We have to be careful. If Cole catches us, he'll call the guards." They decided to return to the mayor's office the next morning, pretending to deliver a message. Naya's voice trembled as she reported to Barton. "Looper says goods have arrived." Barton's eyes narrowed. "Is that so?" He offered to walk them to Cole. Naya palmed a chip she'd hidden in her satchel while Caro pretended to fidget. When they reached the portrait-lined corridor, Caro's fingers brushed the cold metal of a plaque. He recognized the symbol, the same circular sign on the door in the pipeworks. A bead of sweat traced his temple. Barton smiled, unaware, and led them in. Cole's gaze slid over them and landed on the chip. His smile tightened. Then he moved like a seal, swift, silent. "Where did you get that?" he demanded. Naya swallowed. "Found it," she whispered. Cole's voice went low and dangerous. "Give it to me." Naya clutched the box tight and refused to hand it over. "It belongs to my family," she stammered. "My granny." Cole laughed, cruel and flat. "Your family has old names and older debts. Give me the box." The guards reached for Naya. Caro stepped between them like a wall. "You can't just take it." Cole's face hardened. "Seize the girl," he ordered. Panic flared in Naya's chest. She ducked, sprinted, and in the scuffle, she snatched Cole's second chip from the table. It slipped into her pocket like a stone. The mayor barked and the guards pursued, but Naya dove through a window and vanished into the alleys. Caro watched her go, heart in his throat, and then he was on his feet. Either the city would keep its small secrets, or young fools would make new ones. They regrouped with Clara at the greenhouse. Naya produced Cole's chip, and Caro slotted it into the piece they had found earlier. The two parts clicked like a lock opening. Clara's eyes shone. "This is a builder's code," she breathed. "It matches the schematic in the pipeworks." Caro's fingers trembled as he pushed the combined chip into a hidden slot on the old schematic. A faded map under the glass shifted, revealing instructions and a diagram of boats and waterlocks leading to a heavy door. Naya pressed a finger to the map. "This leads to the generator control room." Clara grabbed both their hands and said, "If these are the builder's keys, then they trusted you to find them." The air between them felt electric, a mixture of terror and possibility. They moved under the cover of darkness to the pipeworks. Sol, surprisingly, met them at a service hatch with weary eyes and a lantern. "I counted on you," he said simply. Caro frowned. "You knew." Sol shrugged. "I knew something had been hidden. Old men remember more than they tell." He gave Caro a leather strap and said, "If you open the locks, know that rivers do not always run to friendly shores." Caro nodded, swallowed his fear, and the group set to work. They pushed back racks, pulled at rusted levers, and one by one, lockers shifted like teeth in a jaw. Finally, a flooded channel revealed itself and a small boat waited, chained to a wheel. Caro's fingers found the maker's notch and the chip revealed its secret. A mechanism clicked and a hatch gave way. They sailed through water that smelled of old metal and stories. The boat knocked along a narrow channel while the sound of the city murmured above like distant thunder. At one point, the wheel slowed enough for Sol to shimmy across and wrench at a stuck valve. "Get moving," he shouted. Caro pushed the oar with all the strength his 16-year-old arms could muster. Water surged, and the boat went through a narrowing tunnel with a groan of ancient wood. Suddenly, the water slammed against a barrier, and the boat clattered as a water wheel turned with a new life. The control panel sparked, and the generator hummed with a surge. Back in Haven, lights flickered as if the city was wakening after a long dream. Caro felt hope like warmth under his ribs. While they moved, Looper and a crew had been snooping in the mayor's hoard. Looper whispered to a companion, "Take what you can and vanish." But Cole had become reckless, bolting himself in the secret room surrounded by his canned treasures. He breathed like a trapped animal, convinced his plan would outlast the city's grief. When the great moth, huge and pale as the underside of a cloud, entered the secret room, no one expected the silent violence that followed. Cole stumbled like a puppet with cut strings. The moth, a remnant of the surface world, moved with ancient instinct, and in a blink it ended the mayor's plans and his life. Outside, panic rose at the suddenness of it. Inside, Caro and Naya pressed forward, unaware they were close to changing everything. The boat crashed through an exit and the world opened, a vast shaft, cut from dark stone with stairs spiraling upward. Caro held Naya's hand and helped Pip her out, little feet slipping on damp steps. They climbed until their lungs burned and something like sunlight leaked through a thin crack above. For a moment they paused, blinking like blind birds. Caro put a hand over his eyes and whispered, "Is that?" Naya's voice trembled but steady. "Light." It warmed their faces like a promise. They reached an old chamber where the builders had once met. Dust lay on the table, candles long died, and in the center a faded map pointed upward. Above them, the shaft opened wide to a sky they'd never known. For a second, all the city's small worries dissolved into a larger awe. They stepped into the dawn like explorers of a new myth. The landscape spread in vast broken beauty, trees, wind, and a horizon that finished where the eye ran out. Caro laughed, a raw sound, and Pippa squealed. Naya pressed her palm to a cold rock, tears slipping down dirt-lined cheeks. "We were under the world," she whispered. Caro breathed the thin air. "We are above." The sun rose like a giant coin, gilding everything. They climbed until they stood at the edge and looked down, tiny lights glittering like trapped fireflies. Haven lay in its bowl, a cluster of human lives stilled by stone and time. Naya felt both grief and triumph, for they had left safety and found a new kind of liberty. They were small, but the world was huge. Back in Haven, Laren found the scrap of paper that had fallen from the children's boat and read it by lamplight. His hands shook as the words fell into place. An invitation to leave, to believe, to survive beyond the rock. He marched to the mayor's office, furious and determined, but found only a collapsed man and a ruin of hoarded cans. "They kept us starving," he whispered. The guards, stunned and leaderless, wandered like lost mariners. Laren hoisted the scrap and told a growing crowd, "The builders left a way out. The world above is not a legend." Voices rose, some with disbelief, some with desperate hope. A new kind of murmur spread, one that did not come from the mayor's script but from people remembering they could choose. Meanwhile, Caro, Naya, and Pippa roamed the surface, marveling at small miracles. A bird, a blade of grass, a puddle reflecting the sky. Caro found a polished bowl half buried. Naya found a cracked lens and laughed as light fractured into rainbows. Pippa chased a moth, smaller than the one that had killed Cole, and squealed with delight. They gathered seeds and berries, tasting sour, sweet, and unknown. They realized they had escaped one prison but not yet found a new home. "We must send word," Caro said. "Father must know." Naya nodded, clutching the combined chip like a talisman. "We will find a way to bring them up." In their pockets, the builder's schematics felt heavy, less as instructions and more like an inheritance they could not squander. Back in the city, people gathered in the grand hall. Laren stood before them, a man with grease on his hands and fire in his voice. "They went up," he announced. "They saw the sun." For a moment the crowd wavered, then a cry rose like a tide. Some people bowed their heads and cursed the risk. Others lifted their faces and wept with relief. "We were not made to live in the dark alone," Laren said. "The builders wanted us to remember. They trusted us to choose." Through the crowd came the sound of children singing, an old tune that made the bones of the elders ache. The city's path forward would be hard. There would be fear, hunger, and blame, but for the first time in generations a plan formed, to repair what they could, to gather who were willing, and to climb toward the light. Naya found Lizzie and Mado, and told them everything they had seen and done. Mado held Pippa and wiped her eyes. "You brave child," Mado said softly. "You have given us a chance to choose." Lizzie hugged Naya tight. "The mayor's dark days are over," she murmured. Word spread fast. Shopkeepers refused to lock doors, nurses set aside ration lists, and even some guards aided those who wished to leave. Not everyone believed. Fear tore at some like rats at grain. But where fear met courage, people built ladders, lit lamps, and taught each other to trust hands they had only known as a blur on the street. The builder's map became a blueprint for hope, and hope, like a seed, needs only a little water to begin. A team formed, engineers, gardeners, old storytellers, and young runners. Sol, who had fixed the water wheel and watched the boat pass, stood with Laren and Caro as they planned the first ascent party. "Take what you must," he said, "but leave room to return for the others." Clara packed seeds into bundles. Harlow fetched maps from dusty drawers. Naya kissed Pippa's hair and whispered, "We will come back." The departure was not a triumphal march but a gentle, determined climbing, one ladder at a time, one hand helping the next. The path was treacherous. Some slipped and some stayed behind, choosing a different fate. Yet the ranks swelled with those who wanted to try. They were not just leaving. They were reclaiming possibility. The first group reached the surface at dawn. They climbed out, coughing on clean air, blinking against a sky that had no roof. They looked back at Haven, now a dark bowl with tiny lights, a place full of memory and 1,000 reasons to mourn. Naya stood on a rock and called down in a loud voice, "Come up. There is enough for those who will share." Her voice carried like a bell. Below, Laren heard and wept. People began to move, tentative, scared, but moving. When the last of the first group turned to face the new world, they did not look like conquerors. They looked like parents who had found their child alive after a long night, tired, astonished, unbreakably grateful. In the days that followed, Haven did not simply vanish. It transformed. Some stayed in the city to rebuild, while many climbed to learn the ways of sun and rain. They planted seeds on the broken earth and watched stubborn green push through dust. Children who had never seen the sky learned to shield their eyes. Elders learned the names of birds. Caro and Naya sat on a small rise one evening, watching Pippa chase moths as the sun sank, painting everything with gold. Caro turned to Naya and said, "We kept a promise, to the builders, to the city, to ourselves." Naya smiled, tired and full. "We kept hope," she replied. Above and below, people sang different songs, but both were the same in meaning. A sound that declared, finally, that light can be found again if hands will reach for it.